Let's talk personal safety. I'm gonna start with never have I ever felt unsafe here in Merida, but the question always comes, right? Are we in fact safe? And so I thought I would take a moment to read the Yucatan Times for you. This is an English publication, and so I cannot speak to whether it's the best source for information because I just can't. I don't know enough. However, this is the source that I use. This is the source I'm going to share with you, the Yucatan Times. Let's talk about crimes that occurred in Merida or very close to Merida in the past month. In Progreso, which is technically 30 minutes away, apparently stolen motorcycles are being sold in parts. So careful with your motorcycles. Somewhere in Merida, there was a flat tire scam. And a flat tire scam is when the aggressor gives you a flat tire in some way. And so the concept is that the victim will come out, realize he's got a flat tire. They'll be so busy working on the flat tire that they won't realize that somebody is breaking into their vehicle to take this stuff. In this particular instance, however, the victim realized what was happening and the guys ran away. He still reported the attempted crime, but nothing was actually stolen, nobody was actually hurt. However, it did happen. In Cauquel, which again is not in Merida, but it's a nearby city within Merida, there was a violent armed robbery. This is the headline on a grocery store in Ciudad Cauquel. If we hear armed robbery in the US, what are you thinking? I'm thinking guns. When I hear armed robbery, I'm thinking guns. In this particular instance, we are talking about a large knife. The gentleman had a large knife. He took money out of the cash register as well as somebody's phone, and then he fled. He dropped the knife and continued on. And to my knowledge, he has not been arrested or located yet. So, yep, guy stole money with a knife, nobody actually injured. Okay, so this one is pretty violent, I think. This one happened within Merida in the southern part of Merida. So the title is Gang Members Attack and Kill a Man in Merida's Colonial Juan Pablo II, which is a neighborhood in Merida. And so essentially what happened was two guys were outside of their house drinking, and two gang members were walking by, and apparently one of the gang members gave a dirty look, to which they responded aggressively. And so the gang member pulled out a knife and stabbed this person. The other gang member apparently threw a brick at the second guy that was drinking. The two gang members are now arrested and they are in jail. Unfortunately, the first gentleman who got stabbed has passed away, and then the guy who got hit with a brick is recovering. Pretty violent, right? There was a marijuana drug bust on the highway not too long ago. Nobody was injured or attacked, but it was found, right? There was a drive-by shooting in Las Americas, which is considered part of Merida, I believe, but it's on the outskirts, the northern outskirts of Merida. And for that one, the perpetrator is still unknown. And again, to my knowledge, this person has not been arrested. So they drove by, shot the gentleman, and continued on. The gentleman who was shot did pass away. It does not say why the shooting might have occurred. There was a femicide where a gentleman killed his girlfriend, then he ran, and later that same day he was found and arrested. And in the city of Matcuil, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, which is a municipality or city on the outskirts of Merida to the south of us, there was a dead body found that could be a homicide victim, and so the police are looking into that one. And so I'm reading all this not to scare those of you who are in Merida right now or to, to change your mind, but just to give light to the fact that Merida is not a utopia. We're not exactly isolated from the rest of the world. We have close to, I believe, 900,000 people. And so crime does occur here. Being vigilant with your possessions as well as using your traditional common sense ways of staying safe is still important. But let's take a moment, shall we, and look at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and look at the news happening in Atlanta today. So those of you who watch the news in the US are aware that there was a spa shooting in Atlanta where 8 people were killed. There was a teen car theft. The teen car theft suspects were arrested in Atlanta after a SWAT team standoff. The Atlanta police investigate 3 separate shootings within 2 hours. A man and a child were injured in a shootout outside of Cumberland Mall. A suspect is in custody for the Rockdale hit and run that killed a boy on a bike. Man is injured in shooting on 10th Street near Piedmont Park. I do want to note that on the Yucatan Times, I had to scroll through 3 pages to find all the things that I reported on today. Whereas for the AJC, this is just the headline news. I'm sure if I go deeper, we're gonna find more crimes. So this is just a comparison. Atlanta has a population of, I believe, 400,000 as opposed to Merida's almost 900,000. So where do you feel safer? Doing research on the place you want to live is relatively important. Looking at stats and reading newspapers could be and maybe should be a part of that. But here's what I will tell you about stats, about crimes, whether they happen frequently or infrequently. If there is a 0.0001% chance that you are going to get a disease, and then you get the disease, that disease has now become 100% of your life. If there's a 2% chance of being mugged here in Merida and you become one of that 2%, it is 100% of your life now. And when you are being mugged, whether you're being mugged via gunpoint or machete, or quite frankly, people that you know can hurt you with their fists, it's going to be a traumatic experience. It's not going to be more traumatic because there were weapons. It's not going to be less traumatic because of the type of weapons they had. It's just going to be traumatic. So I don't want to minimize the safety concerns here in Merida just because a particular armed robbery didn't have a gun. And so safety is a lot less about statistics. It's a lot less about what are the chances of it happening or who else did it happen to, and a lot more about what can you do to be vigilant, right? To prevent as many of these from happening as possible, but also what are you gonna do after? Whether you live in the States or Canada or Mexico or Peru, crime happens, emergencies happen, life happens. And so do your due diligence, do your research, figure out the type of crimes that are happening in the area you live / the area that you're looking to live or travel to. Don't let it consume you. Don't let it be the end all be all. Don't let the examples I've read be one more way for you to go, ooh, look, Mexico is dangerous. In addition to, the violent crimes, there are so many other factors that can make you feel safe. So you've got technical things like the weather. Here in Merida, we get really, really hot. Right now, we've just entered a 5-day stretch of 100-degree weather. And so if you've got any kind of sensitivity to heat, especially let's say you've had a heat stroke in the past, then Merida is now a super unsafe place for you to go to. Keep in mind that we also get hurricanes, and while the hurricane itself may or may not affect Merida proper as much, we do get heavily affected by flooding. And something I don't really mention that often is last year during the Cristobal tropical storms, I had leaks in my house. It made me feel insecure. It made me feel like I chose poorly the location I was living in for that moment, until I realized it's not about the house. It really is about the people. I have an amazing landlady who, as soon as she could, fixed all of the leaks, and I was tapped into a community that let me know it's kind of a thing here to have some level of leaks within your house, as well as, of course, the flooding that happens on the streets. So again, there were moments that I felt unsafe, but that got rectified. I also feel like the sidewalks here are unsafe because the sidewalks are uneven. Some of the sidewalks are super slippery. A lot of them are in areas where trees have overgrown in the locations. So I'm ducking under trees or walking on the street. I actually, depending on the traffic, I walk on the streets more than the sidewalks because there's just less trip hazards. So that's a safety thing. The drinking water is most definitely unsafe. I think Mexico and Merida in particular have done an amazing job making sure that there are other sources of water available that we can drink and we can cook with, but nevertheless, that's a safety issue, right? I feel in terms of healthcare that it's very accessible here. I've had plenty of pharmacies to go to when Alex has had a reaction, or if I just needed something from the pharmacy. We definitely chose Merida because of dental, specifically braces accessibility here. And so from that viewpoint, I consider it safe. I'm not freaking out and worrying all the time about the cost or the debt that I'm incurring for braces or other medical things. That being said, there are definitely exceptions to this rule. So if you have a particular medical concern or health related concern, highly suggest that you do your research, do your due diligence about Merida or Mexico, and see how accommodating, how helpful, how safe do you consider Merida to be in regards to a particular condition you may have. Cost of living. When you're living on a budget, I think that cost of living and mental welfare here in Merida, I think especially for a foreigner, is is really, really high, really, really good here. I live on much less income than I did in the US. I have much less income and therefore I live on much less income. And yet my quality of life feels very similar or better to what I had in the US. And so I think finances affect your feeling of safety. And something that's really counterintuitive for me is the fact that in the US, when I see a huge police presence, I immediately associate that with there's something wrong. There is a reason why so many police officers have to come to this location, and it must be because there's something wrong. And so that's usually a place I don't want to be. Here in Merida, Mexico, we have a huge police presence. They are everywhere. Their vehicles tend to keep their lights on. They are fully armed. And yet, vice feeling like they are coming in response to a situation, I feel like it's very preventative. They are here preventing a lot of the crimes from happening. I feel that people are thinking twice. Do I commit a crime to which I will go to jail? And from what I hear, Mexican jail, not a place you want to be. And so I think it's a huge deterrent to crimes happening here. Merida has its own share of pickpockets and petty crimes, especially in a crowded area or a touristy area. There's definitely a lot more pressure here from the vendors than what it was before. And then circling these locations are also the higher chance of a pickpocket finding you. While I've never had an experience myself, I've had multiple locals reminding me it's a thing. Please keep an eye on your money. And related, my first lavanderia, I'm pretty confident, confiscated a couple of my items for keepsakes, more likely to sell. Pickpockets, they're a thing. Locking the doors of your house as well as your vehicles is considered mandatory here. It's not considered an optional thing. People will be very concerned for you if they realize that your house is unlocked. So lock your doors and stay safe. So all of those things to say, the thing that can probably make you feel the most safe or not in a location, it's the people. It will always be the people. While yes, crimes both large and small do happen here in Merida, at the end of the day, I will tell you that the people here are the most caring, are the most loving, not only to their own family and friends, but to strangers, to foreigners. They will go out of their way to help you out. And that's something that you're not going to find in every location. That is something hugely precious about Merida. We have an amazing community here of not only expats, but we have several groups where the locals and the expats are able to hang out together, to learn from each other, to be together, and to take care of one another. So many reasons that I feel that Merida gets the safety stamp of approval from not only others, but from myself. A+ when it comes to safety, but A+ does not mean we're an island separated from the rest of the world. We still have humans here. We still have people who make mistakes. But I created this video because I hate the idea of people assuming that being the second safest city in North America, it doesn't translate to there being literally zero crime here in Merida. There is a level of safety awareness that I think everyone needs to maintain regardless of the titles and trophies that your city may have received.